I know. Good evening, my name is Carrie Nielsen, and tonight my capstone project is on military sexual trauma and the barriers that prevent women in the military from reporting. I'm a veteran myself, and as you might have noticed, I'm wearing my Air Force uniform tonight. I retired this uniform about 10 years ago. I know you guys thought I was your age. But I decided to wear it tonight to represent the women who so bravely shared their stories with me, who relived their experiences of horror, all in the name of my research. So tonight, I honor them. Military sexual trauma is defined by the Department of Veteran Affairs and Defense is psychological trauma resulting from sexual assault, repeated unwanted and threatening sexual harassment. It occurs during military service, and it is a substantial health problem in the United States. My objective was to further research the barriers that prevent women from self-reporting, military culture and whether it perpetuates those barriers, and residual health effects, and whether or not women use the support services that the military has to offer. The justification for my research came from Hill and Pontoon 2023, where they claimed that the Department of Defense has said that military sexual trauma had actually declined. But upon further research, they found that maybe it wasn't that it had declined, it was just that fewer women were reporting. Military sexual trauma, and I'll refer to it as MST for the rest of my presentation, has spanned across the military for over 50 years, and it demands further research and possible new and innovative solutions. For my communications theory, I chose the muted group theory because survivors of MST often feel silenced or marginalized by a predominantly male-dominated institution. The language, the norms and reporting processes put into effect by commanders often make women feel threatened, or that they can't use the reporting process because of retaliation. My literature review came from Rebello et al. 2019, when they said there are three key factors that connect military sexual trauma with military culture. That was power dynamics, inherent environmental factors, and lack of consequences. So power dynamics, when you first join the military, the first thing you learn is you never question your chain of command, and you never go outside of your chain of command. And often this authority can be exploited. For environmental factors, we're under a lot of stress a lot of the time. There's a lot of alcohol in the military. I'm not saying that alcohol justifies MST in any way, but it puts you in a more vulnerable position. And then for lack of consequences, when women see other women reporting and their perpetrators aren't facing any consequences, they say to themselves, why should I report? My other literature review came from Bork 2022, and it was the same idea about mistrust, but it was mistrust in using the support services that the military had to offer. A lot of the women were like, I don't want to use them because I don't want to take a chance of being found out and being retaliated against. My hypothesis was women who perceive the military to be male-dominated are less likely to report military sexual trauma. And then my research question was, does a male-dominated culture in the military prevent women from reporting MST? My methods were dual methods. I did qualitative and quantitative. My quantitative, I had 88 participants. The demographic was that you had to be female and separated from the military. I had 8 dichotomous questions, 2 multi-response, and 11 Likert, and they all had the subjects of barriers, self-reporting, health services, and military culture. And I sent out a cultural survey. My qualitative was 5 participants. They had to have suffered MST, the demographic was female, be separated from the military. I asked non-biased, open-ended questions, assured confidentiality, and I had a safety crisis response plan in place. So here are some of my results. My first question in my quantitative survey was, have you ever experienced MST? 65% of the women said yes, 35% said no. That's 1 out of every 3 women. Did you ever report MST? A staggering 75% said no, 25% said yes. Do you receive disability compensation or use the military support services? Another staggering number, 72% no, 28% yes. For my qualitative research question 1 was, if you reported MST, what was your experience? And I used the thematic analysis for this. The common theme was command was at the core of the problem. I was threatened by my commander. He told me, if you pursue this, it won't be good for you. And I said, yes, sir. Sounds like the military. Research question number 2, if you did report MST, why? A lot of this common theme was fear and mistrust in the system. I feared what would happen to me if I reported. I feared that the men who did it, who had paid consequences, would come back and do it to me again. Research question number 3, what do you think the culture is in the military? This is where my hypothesis started to take a little bit of a change from what my original one was. You don't have choices, you just do as you are told. A culture of obedience. And lastly, research question 4, do you use any of the resources? A lot of the women had a really bad taste in their mouth about this. They were like, I don't want to have anything to do with the military anymore. I don't want to use any of the resources. So little or no use of military resources and little or no disability. My insights were that I did come up with an alternative hypothesis. 92% of the perpetrators were in a position of authority, and they used that authority to exploit the women from reporting. So my original hypothesis with it was just that it was male dominated. Now my hypothesis leans more to possibly looking at the authority within it. Limitations, trust issues were a big thing. I interviewed 5 women. I had 88 women. I talked to almost every single one of them to explain myself. I guarantee you a civilian wouldn't have been able to do this research. It took a lot of trust from them. I had some hate mail. I had people telling me I was exploiting them. It was difficult to gain their trust. Structured interviews. So for the qualitative survey, it was really hard to stick to the script because the women immediately started telling me their stories. It was very emotional, and I didn't want to interrupt and say, I have questions to ask. I just let them kind of guide the interview and get the research I could out of it. And then non-bias. I think as researchers, we're often, asked to be non-biased, and we're not robots. We're human. We have emotions. My oldest, the oldest woman that I interviewed was 82 years old, and she was gang raped by 5 men who took her to a lake and raped her all night long. And she was the one that said that she went after work and hid under her bed every night for a year and slept under her bed. So it's hard to not get emotional. Excuse me. future research towards solutions. I think there should be conduct an economic analysis of integrating civilian health care. While you're in the military, I think more women would go and get health care, into the civilian health care. There should be research on the chain of command and reform within the chain of command. You don't question the chain of command, so what happens if your commander's the one that raped you? Where do you go? And then there should be research with effective outside reporting processes. So most of the women in this, there was one common thing. And first of all, I know this was a heavy topic, and I wanted to end this presentation with hope. Military sexual trauma is not something that defines you, it's something that happens to you. And every single one of these women that I talked to, even the ones that just took the survey, wanted you to know that they were proud to serve their country and they were proud of what they accomplished. So most of the women asked me if I would send them my research results, and I told them yes, I would. And along with my research results, I sent them attached a little message. And if you'll indulge me, I would like to end my presentation with the message.
Dear veteran sisters, this research was not in vain. Your stories matter. I hope it becomes part of a larger wave of truth-telling and change, something that helps protect and empower the next generation of women in the military. You survived what was meant to break you, and in doing so, you already changed the world more than you know. This work is a tribute to your resilience, your courage, and your unshakable will to be seen, heard, and healed. I won't lie to you, it's an uphill battle, but as the Navy SEALs like to say, the only easy day was yesterday. But for today, I've got your six. Master Sergeant Retired Carrie Nielsen, U.S. Air Force.
This isn't a question, but that was very powerful, and I'm sure it took a lot of courage to stand up there and present that. So I'm sure no one in this room was educated on that, and you know, just I think I'm speaking for every student that we appreciated that, and that was really cool to do.
What was the age range? You said the oldest one was 82.
The oldest one was 82, and that's all I knew. I didn't ask for any age for the demographic. I just said you had to be separated because women in the military still could not trust the process. I tried in the beginning, and they were like, "Oh hell no, I'm not taking your survey." So,
In training, I mean, you ended hope, and I think that's powerful. What would you say to young women who are interested in going into the military with this in mind?
yeah, I think that that's a really good question. I would say don't go in the military. No, I'm just kidding. No, and you know, I'm not here to dog the military. The military is trying with programs. It's not like this is completely ignored or anything. But I would just say that you have to have your military group of women. The women help each other in the military. They stick together, and and also do question your commander and do find help else outside. If you're going to join the military, if it's what you want to do, I did it for 27 years. Okay, so I'm not dogging the military in any way. It's just something that it's a problem that's not going away anytime soon. Maybe not even as long as you have men and women working together in stressful environments like this. And that doesn't also say that stress excuses enmity. I would just tell them to be really careful and be careful about drinking too. There's a lot of alcohol in the military. And one of the questions women get asked all the time is, are you drinking? Well, then I can't help you. You know, so that's not the way it should be.
I'm curious, because it seems like men are holding a higher position of power, right? Are you seeing, is there like a trend in that changing where women are taking on more higher positions of power to hopefully kind of set this off and change the?
Definitely,
Okay.
definitely, Professor. And, you know, these are women that were in the military. So you had some that were in the military in the sixties,
Right, right.
70s, 80s, when men were, you know, it was predominantly all male. It still is closer to male, so there still are problems, you know, so.
Years ago when I was a civilian instructor on the Marine base, I noticed the Marines in particular, maybe there was one woman in my class to like 80 men. So are there certain branches where it's heavier female, like the Air
Yes.
Force versus the US Marines versus the Army?
Yes. Totally different branches and also different jobs. I myself worked with 105 men and I was the only woman. And so there's different jobs in the military where I worked in something called the Counter Drug Task Force. We interdicted drugs coming across the border. I chose to do that, so, you know, that was, you know, we get choices, you know, for the most part, when it comes to what job you want. So it's more, it could be in any one of the services, but it's more the job you choose.
I know you said there were like certain programs and stuff that are like being enacted to help these women. Like what type of preventative measures are like they taking to like?
Well, they're doing the education, the
Yeah.
posters, you know, don't be afraid, and it is helping.
Yeah.
But, you know, that literature review kind of saw something different. There's still a stigma to reporting, because the stigmas are silent too. You can be blackballed in the military. Does anybody know what that means? That means everybody stops talking to you, and if you report it. So the commanders are like, good for you, you reported, that's great, but now all of a sudden you've gotta face that type of retaliation.
I don't know if anyone in our class has seen the movie with Demi Moore called G.I. Jane. She was the first Navy SEAL, and I believe that was a true story, where it was like the first film to kind of bring to light the sexual trauma, sexual abuse, and specifically as a Navy SEAL, I don't know how many females are SEAls.
I don't think there's any, yeah, I think they've tried, I don't know the info.
Yeah, that was like, I think, the first public open awareness of, wow, this is happening.
Thank you.